Wilson if Chris Brady is just entering the room right now, and if Joe is ready, Joe Wilson is ready to introduce Chris Brady. I'll let you have the mic, Joe.
Okay, I am ready. And is he in yet? I hate to introduce him.
He's here.
Okay, very good. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. I think most of you know Chris Brady, but just in case you don't know everything about him, let me give you a couple little tidbits about him. First of all, you just learned about the city he runs, and that is the 35th largest city in the United States, so that's quite a task in itself. He came to Mesa as a city manager in 2006. Prior to that, he served as the assistant city manager for 10 years in San Antonio, and he was in various management and administrative positions in Bel Air, Texas, Houston, Texas, and Provo, Utah prior to that. Chris earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science from BYU in '87 and a Master's of Public Administration from BYU in '89. A couple of recognitions we have, and he's listed. In 2019, we were top 20 best run cities in America. And that really is a tribute to Chris and his staff. I just read this morning that we are number 8, Mesa, in the best places to live economically by some group that awarded it. Chris is married and has 4 children, and he is going to share with us some of the happenings and challenges of the city of Mesa during this interesting time. So Chris, I'm turning it over to you.
All right, thank you. Hello everyone, thank you, Joe. I recognize a few of you, so hopefully I'll have something that enlightening that maybe I can share with you, but let me talk a little bit about what's happening in the city of Mesa, maybe specifically as it relates to our response to the pandemic. And then probably more beneficial is just to open up for some questions that you may have specifically about what's happening in Mesa. Mesa is a busy place. Even during these last 6 to 7 months, this has been a remarkable year for the city of Mesa. Not only obviously having to adjust in a very dramatic ways to the pandemic and the city's role in providing a response, but Mesa as a city continues to grow. We are having significant growth opportunities in Mesa with some very large employers and manufacturing and home building that continues in Mesa. So even during what many would be concerned about as a challenging economic time, in Mesa, it's actually, we kind of appreciate the fact that people are having to stay home and shop in Mesa. It's been very helpful for us for those local sales tax. But so let me talk a little bit just quickly about the city's response and kind of what's going on as it relates to the pandemic since March, April timeframe. As we got into the very beginning of this, and obviously as everyone began to realize how significant the pandemic was and the spread, and the impacts it was having on everyone, socially, financially, in many different ways. And as we began to see the lockdowns and the closure of businesses, and the concern about many of our residents losing jobs, and the fear of them just not having really the resources to provide for themselves. One of the first things we did as a local government is we actually stood up a very broad outreach to our community to survey businesses, residents, nonprofits, and find out what were the most important concern, or what were the greatest concerns they had at the beginning of this pandemic. And it was really an interesting survey because we had, obviously, you can imagine, we had a great response from our community, but we were trying to identify, because as we were trying to prioritize what it is that we could do as a local government, we were trying to identify what were the greatest concerns. And it came back, and it was pretty interesting, the response. Maybe it's not surprising, but it began to help us define what our role would be. The first and foremost, as you can imagine, is a kind of a basic issue of life, was food, was access to food. That came up quickly in our survey as individuals were concerned about where they could get their next meal. We saw runs on supplies at grocery stores. We saw lots of people losing jobs, and so just having the need for the food on the table became by far the first and foremost priority, at least concern that was expressed to us. There was concern about emergency medical response and police protection. During this entire time, people talk about going back to work. The city of Mesa, 80% of its employees have never stopped going to work every day. Whether that's police and fire, whether it's picking up the garbage, whether it's working on streets or keeping our utilities operational, our support services, whether it's fleet. We have to have people come in, and accountants and payroll clerks, because we still have to pay those employees that are out there in the field. So a large portion of our employees continue to come to work every day. But anyway, just the concern about police and fire response, that's never been an issue. As a matter of fact, during these last 6 to 7 months, our calls for service for police and fire have actually dropped. And initially, they dropped pretty dramatically. And just because I guess people were at home and they weren't on the streets traveling around, we experienced quite a bit of drop in our services there. The next largest one had to do with household supplies and disinfectants, having masks available. That makes sense. And then really the next two were being able to pay for their utilities and their rent or their mortgage. That was a big issue for many of our residents. And then mental health, concern about mental health issues. So that's how we started. And then we had to figure out, okay, what do we do with all this information? And recognizing that as a local government, there's a lot of things we do every day, that just incredible amount of services we provide. But some of these we don't have a lot of experience in. And so we quickly found great partners that we could work with. So for, as you all know, the food bank, United Food Bank, we quickly partnered with them. Matter of fact, they've kind of moved in to our front door, if you would, here at Municipal Plaza, where they are distributing food out of the parking lot of our convention center. And many of the individuals that are there helping them are staff from our Parks and Recreation Department and from the staff from the convention center. We have purchased them very large refrigeration trucks. We've helped purchase a lot of food. We've opened up our kitchen at the convention center to prepare meals that are distributed across the city. We've turned our exhibit hall, where you may be familiar, we've often had the city's State of the City. It's a working warehouse with forklifts and pallets and all kinds of food that are being delivered and then broken down and put into boxes for distribution. So that was, and we've worked with other food banks on the other parts of the city, Midwestern and others. And so we've tried to very quickly ramp up with providing support to our food banks. And I think we've done a pretty good job. As of this month, since the beginning of April or middle of April, we will have helped distribute over 3 million meals in Mesa. So that's a lot of work, a lot of resources. So that's what we've done on the food side. We're recognized that residents were needing a lot of help, but also businesses. Businesses were closed, obviously, and even the ones that might be open had a difficult time having, the customers just weren't showing up. So the city council really encouraged the city staff to look at ways to how we could help businesses, and frankly, to really focus on the micro, I'll call it the micro businesses, the very small businesses, those who have maybe 2 or 3 employees. So quickly we began an outreach to identify those businesses that were of that size, and all Mesa businesses, but mostly those businesses that didn't have an opportunity to participate or didn't know how to get access to the federal dollars that were available. And so we were able to provide, through the funding we received from the federal government, to provide resources to help them pay for their rent, their mortgage, and their utilities. And so we've been able to do that side. We call that our business grant program. And then in addition to that, for all Mesa businesses, we have been running a technical assistance program. And I hope if some of you that are on the call are here today, if you're a small business, that you've taken advantage of that program. It has been very successful. We've partnered with the Chamber of Commerce, Local First, and many other nonprofits who have always had an experience in working with businesses and developing the technical skills to help them be successful, whether it's in marketing. But what we're finding is many of our small businesses, just the very basics of computer technology is what they're lacking. So we've worked with MCC and others to come up with these technical assistance programs that have been very popular, been well received by our small businesses, that we're offering to all Mesa businesses that want to participate. So we've been spending, again, a lot of resources on helping a select few of our small businesses pay for their bills, but all Mesa businesses have been available to the technical assistance through webinars and other ways of communicating and providing that business assistance to them. Let's see. We're also in the midst of a program working with New Leaf and city staff, providing rental assistance for individuals that have been impacted by COVID. So that's a program that continues to go on today, where we're trying to get dollars out the door so that people are not lose their home or are evicted from their rental property. So we're trying to get those dollars out to meet those needs. We're also paying for utility assistance. We put a moratorium on shutting off utilities to our customers back in March. Since then, now we are to the point where we are working with residents and trying to get them to pay. And we have the best offer of the deal is if you can't pay, we've got money to help you pay. And so we're trying to provide that assistance to residents to pay for the last 6 months of their utilities and help them get on a plan so that they can move forward with that. And so we have every day we have residents that we're working with on applications to help pay for their utilities. And again, all of this is available because the city of Mesa received about $90 million from the federal government for these kinds of programs. So we're hoping to kind of bridge the gap with both businesses and residents to help them pay for their rent or their utilities to get them to a point where hopefully our money runs out. We have to have it spent by the end of the year. So hopefully by then they will have the opportunity to get back on their feet, and either business will be able to assess kind of going forward how they can make those plans, and residents will be able to make the payments going forward. I think I saw Andy. Yep, Andy's on the call. So Andy had a great idea that the city could help the schools by providing technology, providing laptops to students. And so it's been a great program to work with Mesa Public Schools and some of our other school districts that we touch in Mesa. And the city of Mesa purchased almost $6.5 million worth of laptop computers for students in the kindergarten through 6th grade grades. And so that's been a great program to get that technology out into our students. We wish we could figure out a way to get broadband access to everybody just as simply. We give them the devices, but now the challenge we've got to figure out as a community is how to make broadband access to everyone, regardless of where you live. So that's something we're working on. But we did spend over $6.5 million in laptops for educational purposes in Mesa. Just a few others. Well, we mentioned also with the schools with Andy and her staff. We did a series of weekends where we went out to the schools and we identified some very specific zip codes where we went with the school district and the fire and medical department, and we were able to provide hundreds of flu shots and conducted COVID testing. So we were able to do that in some of the areas where we identified where there was a higher rate of COVID infection, and get several hundred flu shots out in the community. And we did those on Saturday mornings. And that was a great success. We appreciate the partnership with the school district to get that accomplished. So I could keep going on and on, but those are kind of things that what we've been doing in Mesa, Arizona is trying to really meet the needs of our community and identify ways that we can use those federal dollars to really support our community and residents and businesses alike. So I'll kind of pause there. There's more, but I could just go on and on. But maybe Joe or Ben, is there some questions I could take maybe that would help?
Yes, we'll do some questions, and I'm going to start the questions. With the COVID taking another turn upward, what do you see in the future of any upcoming changes in the city?
Well, we're actually opening up our museums and libraries. Now, you're going, what in the world are you doing that now? I think the difference is we know more about, we have the, we know a little bit more about what we can do to be safe and healthy. And we've been able to spend a lot of time during the summer to prepare our facilities so that it would be safe for individuals to come in. We have very strong protocols on health protocols, meaning it's not just open to anybody. You have to have an appointment. The capacities are significantly reduced as far as who we let into the facilities. The experiences are much, obviously, no touch experiences now. It's family groups sticking together. So the rise in the cases is very concerning to us. The mayor's put out messages about continuing to, wear a mask, be safe. But so far, we are going to continue to be very careful about what services we open up. When I say we've opened up the libraries, what that means right now is if you want to check out a book, you call ahead, you pull up into the parking lot at a certain time and you pop your trunk, and then they put the books into your trunk. Or on a limited basis in a couple of our libraries, you make an appointment, you can go into the library in a limited space, and there's only 10 people at a time, and there's a limited number of materials you can browse on the shelves, and then you walk out. So I guess the difference is, yes, we're opening up our services, we're being very careful. As a city or as an organization, again, I have so many essential services that employees have to come to work regardless of what's going on. But for other employees, yesterday we were doing COVID testing here. We've offered flu shots. We're doing temperature checks. We're trying to do everything we can to be safe. So.
Thank you. I believe, let's see, who was it? Mark, did you have a question?
Oh, Mark, you want me to talk about the hotels, the Off the Streets program? Okay, I can do that. I saw your thing. Yeah, thank you for, that's a great point, Mark. With our collaboration with many of our nonprofits, including United Way and others, we recognize that during this time of COVID, we really had to pay attention to our unsheltered population and how the COVID would impact them. And with the resources that we were given from the federal government, we were able to come up with a program which we call Off the Streets. And that has allowed us to make contact with individuals that are unsheltered and go and approach them and offer them the opportunity to actually come and go stay in one of a few of the hotels that we've identified and we have rented rooms for. And what you think, well, that sounds like a temporary solution, but what it really does for us, it allows us to stabilize someone, get them out of the park, get them out of an alley, and have a place to sleep. But then we are, at the same time, we are bringing with that food, services, and navigators. So these navigators are the ones that connect with these individuals and help them connect to other social services. The idea is to try to stabilize them, and while they're at the hotel, is have an opportunity to connect with them and work with them on trying to progress and improve in a transition that may lead to a more stable environment. And we've had some great successes. It's been a wonderful program. We've had great, the hotels that have participated have been wonderful. They go in and they clean the rooms. We have so many rooms that we rent. We have a police officer there the entire time for security, and we keep checking with the neighbors to make sure that everything's fine with them. So it's been a great program. It's been so successful because of the outcomes of not just getting people in a hotel room, but those people actually helping those people to get connected with other services, that we're going to continue the program for another year, even without the federal dollars, because we've seen the success of this program. So.
Joe, you're muted right now, but let me just jump in, if I might add. There are 3 questions that I've just noticed. One, that Chaz asks if the recycling center is reopened.
It has.
If you have any news on that.
It has.
The other is from Steve Adams. He's asking about volunteers that might be able to help with city programs from either Rotary or other volunteer clubs that are represented here.
Yeah, I think where we have seen the biggest need for volunteers, but I don't know what the current need is working with United Food Bank on the days that they're, or United or Midwest on the food distribution. That's where we've seen the greatest need. And I think they've got signups through those organizations if you're interested. And so that's where I would go to look for those opportunities.
Chris, Jerry Paulus, I had 2 questions. I was wondering, I like where you're going with broadband. That was always an issue with me, that, you know, many of our low economic status homes, they just don't have high quality broadband. And I know when I was in Dubai, Dubai had, if you had an area code of that region, then you were able to get free internet. And I'm wondering if we could maybe pursue something like that with some federal funds to be able to see if we can't launch a program. And once it's launched, maybe it would never end, that broadband would get out to these homes and to, you know, people. It seems to me we shouldn't have to go into Burger King and say, you know, can I use your broadband? It should be available to everyone. So I like where you're going, and I don't know if there's any opportunity there.
It's a great question, Jerry. And as you know, well, broadband, we talk about it. We used to talk about it as kind of this luxury, you know, kind of cool thing you got to have in your home. I think Andy would tell you it's a necessity now. It's kind of like someone's compared having broadband to having electricity. Yes. The challenge we have is we didn't build the city overnight and laying out all the infrastructure overnight, and broadband's the same way. The city of Mesa has been in the business of laying out conduit. So if you think of the pipe that in which you can run the fiber, we're not in the fiber business, because that would be competing with Cox, CenturyLink, Verizon, and those. But we have and continue to put conduit into the city streets now. We've done some, nothing to cover the whole entire city. So that's really the discussion, is how do we create a connected city, and what role does the city play in providing the conduit through which multiple groups could come and run their own fiber, even competitors. Mm-hmm. We had a consultant run a number for us about how much that would cost. We did the whole city. It's only about $450 to $600 million. So it's a big number. And so trying to figure out how we would recover that cost is kind of what's before us today. We recognize broadband is really important. And certainly there are certain neighborhoods where we need to see if we can help get it there. But we can provide the conduit, and we're trying to find ways to convince these large providers to run fiber. So that's our goal, and we're working on that plan right now.
One more question.
Oh, give another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, very quickly. You know, there's so much unrest in our society today, and there's this discussion about defund the police. What is Mesa doing in order to be able to show the legitimacy of our police force and to show the systems that we have in place to show that we are, in fact, a role model city as far as our police go? Question.
That's a fair question. I'm not going to tell you that we're not without our own challenges. And we've had incidences that are very difficult to deal with in our community. But the city of Mesa and its residents have been very supportive of our Mesa Police Department. It wasn't that long ago, only a few years ago, the citizens of Mesa approved an additional sales tax to support police and fire services. But we recognize we have work to do in our community, and especially with many of our community members who may feel disenfranchised or do not feel that they have an equal voice, or feel like maybe that there is unequal enforcement. And so we're very sensitive to that. And we have a police chief who is working diligently to look at what are the things we can do to improve. Part of it is transparency. Part of it is involving more of the community in the depolicing discussions and operations. And so we've set up opportunities for community members to be involved in reviewing critical incidents where use of force may have been used, and helping us to evaluate, how can we do better? We're reviewing all our training and making sure it incorporates a lot of de-escalation training. A lot of times in police departments, the academy is more about taking control of the situation and enforcing, the commands of the police officer. There's a new generation of training that we're trying to be very and bring into our training too, about how to de-escalate the situation. Another idea that it's not just my idea, but it's something I'm pushing that's coming across the country. Instead of talking about defunding the police department, is how do you help the police department put them in the right roles and put them in the right situations? Right now, we have police officers, patrol officers, who may have only been on the force for a few years, 3 to 5 years. They're usually working those later shifts, those very busy times. And if they get a call and they show up on a scene where there's a mental health episode going on, somebody's acting out in a behavioral health episode, they have some training, but not a lot. And yet they show up with lights flashing, their vest and all their equipment. And, that puts both the police officer and the family member and the individual who they called about and concerned about in a very difficult situation. So instead of calling about defunding, what we're trying to figure out is how do we find out ways to take some of these kinds of responses away from the patrol officer. Let's send out, instead of sending out a sworn law enforcement officer, what if we send out a person who's trained in mental health behavior, a clinician who shows up dressed in a polo shirt and slacks, or whatever, not slacks, t-shirts and Levi's, and has a conversation and tries to use their medical training, behavioral health training, to de-escalate a situation, and then help that person identify medications or treatments where to go to. That's how we're trying to respond, is to be smarter about how and where we put police officers in those situations, and trying to help them maybe keep them away from situations that they're really not best suited for, and de-escalate a lot of our calls. And we hope by doing that, we avoid some of these very unfortunate outcomes that sometimes we see across the country. And unfortunately, we've had a few even in Mesa.
Chris, I think we have one more question time-wise, and then we'll let you get to your meeting. I know you have something on your schedule. The last question is, we were growing as a city prior to COVID. You indicated businesses are still coming, but is the city as a whole continuing to grow, or has there been a slowdown?
It is busier than ever. If you haven't been to, hold on, just don't get dizzy. If you want to see busyness, look at this. Can you see that?
Yes.
And Southeast Mesa is on fire. I mean, we have buildings that are going up, not 10 or 50,000 square feet. The minimum sizes we're building out in Southeast Mesa for manufacturing is like 250,000 square feet. And they can't build them fast enough. They're gobbling up land everywhere. It's great. This is probably one of the busiest times in Mesa's, at least from both residential's doing well. It's not the busiest year of residential, but it's still doing very well. But when we talk about manufacturing industry, warehouses, data centers, those are all going up and just overnight. And if you drive around the airport down a gateway, you would see a lot of that. So it's been a very good year for Mesa. As I tell people, the pandemic is very unfortunate, but it's been a good year for Mesa, Arizona.
Well, Chris, I thank you so much for taking time today. I don't think you have a very big job with all that's going on right now, it sounds like. But I know that you have a very busy schedule, and we really appreciate you taking this time to be with us and answer some questions for us. And thank you for all that you do and all of the city employees do for us.
Thank you, Joe. Take care. Bye, everybody.